gosh, it's like every week this guy says he's back and then he disappears for like a week and a half, missing 4 or 5 games at a time. Where's the consistency, man? Dude, what do you mean? You know exactly why nothing has been uploaded for the last week or so. You know exactly why we've missed the last 5 games. What do you mean? I have no idea why the uploads have been so sparse. It's been such a good stretch of games. One would think we'd be overjoyed to upload this stuff. So why? I need an explanation. I swear, it's like we all forget we're the same person. And that's why Hoodie Guy stays in the real world. And the Vegas Golden Knights continue to be able to rattle off win after win, coming out of the All-Star break, winning their second consecutive game by a score of 5-1, this time over the Minnesota Wild, who came out of the All-Star break a little bit on the flat side. The goaltending matchup in this one was pretty good in the forms of Marc-Andre Fleury for the Minnesota Wild versus Logan Thompson for the Vegas Golden Knights. And oh my goodness, Marc-Andre, what has happened to you since you left the Golden Knights organization? Half a year in Chicago and now the rest of those 2 years in Minnesota, and you don't look like the same goalie. Sure, the game started off interestingly with the Golden Knights scoring the first goal of the game on a goal that did not look like a goal by any stretch of the imagination, kind of a soft one by Fleury, before putting up a second one in the second period, and then going on to get scored on, bringing it back to 2-1, and then scoring 3 goals on like 5 shots, including a Riley Smith penalty shot goal and a Jack Eichel snapshot on a rush that resulted in Fleury getting angry and snapping his stick over the post. Ultimately, the end of the second period of that game marked the end of Marc-Andre Fleury's night, with Gustafsson coming on in relief, and it should have been a rather open and shut game for the Golden Knights. That was until about early on, about 5 minutes into the third period, when a bit of a defensive breakdown, a bit of a turnover led to what may be a season-defining moment for the Golden Knights. Logan Thompson had to range across from his left to his right and then very quickly back to his left. And when he went to push back to his left, it looked like something gave way in his legs. And ultimately, he had to be helped off the ice. Adin Hill came in relief, didn't give up a goal. The Golden Knights held on 5-1. What's frustrating about this is the score was 5-1 at the time, and having recorded this with the benefit of hindsight, given that this is about a week and a half ago now, we know that Logan Thompson is out week to week, which means that simple momentary lapse in defensive structure and a 5-1 hockey game could have spelled the end of Logan Thompson's season. Now, I'm not going to say that he's going to be out for the rest of the season, but I can't say that he'll be back anytime soon. And we're recording this from 4 games in the future, and he still is yet to come back. So that's a little bit concerning. But, I mean, a 5-1 win after a 5-1 win has got to feel pretty good if you're a Golden Knights fan. I tend to agree, especially given our struggles in XL Energy Center and Minneapolis as all. Following that game in Minnesota, the Golden Knights come back home for a Super Sunday tilt against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, the Anaheim Ducks are a little bit of a thorn in our side. They're similar to the San Jose Sharks, who are in town for the next game, in that they should be an easy win, but they have the ability to play hard, and they've beaten us once already this year. And John Gibson's in net, and we know he can single-handedly steal a game from experience early on in this year. And it kind of looked like that might be what was going to happen. Again, the Golden Knights jump out to an early 2-0 lead before giving one back late in the second period, going into the third 2-1. And I guess they, being the Golden Knights, wanted to be able to enjoy watching the Super Bowl in a couple of hours, and I guess they were also in the football spirit, as they would go on to score goals 3, 4, 5, complete the touchdown with goal 6, and kicks the extra point with goal 7 to win the game 7-2. Now, what was interesting in this game is it was at 1.5-2, as they did, just like a game in Minnesota, have a couple of defensive lapses at 5-1 that resulted in a goal for the Ducks, and then they proceeded to take that and step on their opponent's necks and make sure that there was absolutely no way that the Ducks were going to be able to come back into the game, and there was absolutely no way that there was going to be an injury that could become the headline of that game. It was the most open and shut, complete domination the Golden Knights have had all season, which feels really good. That's 3-0 coming out of the All-Star break. And just like the Ducks before us, the San Jose Sharks are also one of those games where you circle it on the calendar because you expect it to be a win, but in the reality is the San Jose Sharks are a decent team, and any team that has Erik Karlsson performing at a high level can obviously be a threat. And oddly enough, they were the biggest threat the Golden Knights had faced to this point coming out of the All-Star break. Obviously, this was one of the rare times after the break where the Golden Knights gave up the first goal, which happened later on in the second period. Went into the third period down 1-0. But a thing about this season series that's interesting is that the team that has led going into the third period has lost every single game. Now, the Sharks were like 10-1 or something and 1 going into the third period with a lead. And that one was Phil Kessel's 1,000th game against the Golden Knights, storming comeback to win in regulation. And surprise, surprise, that is exactly what happened here. Paul Cotter scored pretty early on into the third period, and with 17 seconds to go, Will Carrier netted his seventh game-winning goal with 17 seconds left. He is third in the NHL in game-winning goals behind Kyle Connor and Leon Draisaitl. He's tied with Connor McDavid, for crying out loud, and he makes like a tenth of what those guys do. So Will Carrier is having an incredible season. Golden Knights win 2-1 in regulation, and what should have been a much more lopsided game, but nail biters are still nail biters. If you win 2-1, it's still 2 points. And so the Golden Knights come out now 4-0 after the All-Star break. This game was the Golden Knights' toughest test in this homestand to restart the season after the All-Star break, with the Tampa Bay Lightning coming into town. And this game definitely delivered. Games against the Tampa Bay Lightning in T-Mobile Arena tend to have some pretty iconic moments. What comes to mind is the Shea Theodore 2 seconds to go goal in the game that decided first place in the NHL in the inaugural season, which I happened to be at, and it was incredible. And so that was kind of the bar going in, and it did not disappoint. Golden Knights again gave up the first goal on a low tip. And then 7 seconds later, a franchise record-setting 7 seconds later, Brett Howden tied it up on a feed from Keegan Kolesar across the crease, which was really good. The fourth line has been on fire, and it will continue. It was before this game, and it continues after this game. The fourth line's really good. And then a lazy penalty gives the Lightning a power play. Steven Stamkos scores on that power play. And then Jonathan Marchessault scores 2 minutes after the Stamkos goal on a twisted wrister from the low slot to snap a 13-game goalless drought. And then Shea Theodore scores on what should have absolutely been a save on a really nice 3-on-1 rush play where Theodore was the trailer, slipped it underneath the arm of Vasilevsky, and the puck crossed the goal line going at about 0.1% of 1 mile per hour. But hey, it's not how, but how many, and the Golden Knights were up 3-2 at that point. And then Jonathan Marchessault, in the waning minutes of the first period, scored on a very reviewed, very controversial tip to himself, which they deemed to have tipped below his shoulders as to not be a high sticking call, and then potted it behind Vasilevsky for the fourth goal of the period going into the first intermission, 4-1, with 4 goals being the most goals Andrei Vasilevsky's allowed in a single period this entire season. Now, this game wasn't over as Corey Perry scored on an absolutely horrific Golden Knights turnover in the middle of the second period, but the game existed at 4-3 Golden Knights for a pretty long period of the time. That wasn't until Nick Waugh scored with the goalie out for Tampa Bay and made it 5-3. I know Pierre-Edouard Bellemare scored with about 10 seconds left in the game, but with a 2-goal deficit in garbage time, it's okay to give up that 1 goal, and the Golden Knights win yet another game, their 5th in a row, to exit the All-Star break. And again, in pretty convincing fashion. They were pretty comfortable playing in 1-goal games. They played from behind, they played from ahead, and they essentially controlled the game. Aiden Hill looked really solid again, getting his 3rd consecutive win. All in all, not really a lot to complain about. The Tampa Bay Lightning they're not an easy customer. The Golden Knights took care of business pretty easy. The customer they did not take care of business against is the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I circled this game on the calendar a long time ago, like back in November when the Blackhawks were really, 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 really bad, and we knew they were going to be really, really, really bad, as this was an absolute trap game. And now you add to it the drama of the Patrick Kane saga, especially as it pertains to the Golden Knights, and there's so many distractions around this game. I'm amazed that the players were able to tie their skates and chew bubblegum at the same time in the locker room with the amount of drama surrounding this. Now, for those of you who've had your head under a rock for the last 2 weeks, there were a couple of teams that were vying for the services of Chicago's number one trade bait in Patrick Kane, mainly the Golden Knights, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the New York Rangers. Now, 2 of those teams have made moves in the recent past, being the Rangers acquiring a Vladimir Tarasenko from the St. Louis Blues, or Toronto acquiring Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari from the St. Louis Blues. And that leaves the Golden Knights as the number 1 suitor for Patrick Kane. And so the storyline of Patrick Kane potentially playing his last home game as a Blackhawk against his likely future team, it, on top of being made for TV, it was a little bit of a distraction, and it showed in the way the Golden Knights played this game. Sure, Keegan Colasar was able to come out and score just a disgusting goal on Peter Mrazek on just an absolutely bonkers feed from Nick Waugh in the low slot between a defender's legs. And I know Keegan Colasar sometimes can't hit the ocean from the pier, but this time he was in the ocean already, and so there was absolutely no chance he was going to miss this one. Ultimately, though, the Golden Knights just did not look like themselves, had 3 or 4 scoring opportunities immediately after that could have made it 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, but none of them were able to find the back of the net, whether it be good saves from Mrazek, one too many passes, or excellent defensive play from the Blackhawks. And I guess the Hawks were rewarded in the fact that they were able to go into the first intermission on a tie game. Obviously, Eichel then scored in the second period to kind of help further him get off the schneid that he was on, and that's good. And the second period ended with a 2-1 Golden Knights lead. But, the Hawks came out, they pressed really hard in the third period. Golden Knights didn't really dominate any of the play at all. And a late, ill-advised penalty put the Chicago Blackhawks on the power play with about 2 minutes to go, which wound up being a 6-on-4 when they pulled Mrazek. And with about a minute to go in the game, Blackhawks scored to tie the game at 2 apiece. Now, the Golden Knights came out in overtime, dominated a little bit of the play, but again, 1 or 2 too many passes, or the guy was just in the wrong place, or the puck was bouncing. For whatever reason, the Golden Knights were not able to score, and again, the VGK found themselves on the back foot, and with about 3 seconds left in overtime, the man of the minute, Patrick Kane, comes flying down the ice, and he wires one past Laurent Brossoit right as time expires. Cue the 5-minute replay to find out that he was about a tenth of a second too late, and so the game was going to a shootout. Every Golden Knights fan exhales as we believe, okay, we got this, until we realize that one of the best shootout goalies in the league, in the form of Logan Thompson, is currently in Las Vegas with his feet up on the couch watching the game, and we have Laurent Brossoit in net, who hasn't played an NHL game since March of 2022. And so while Brossoit had a good showing, going 2 for 3 in the shootout in saves, the Golden Knights went 0 for 3 on shots, and ultimately was only able to collect 1 point from a game that they realistically should have won in regulation against the worst team in the NHL. I'm going to say that again. Going into this game, the Blackhawks were tied for the worst team in the NHL in terms of points. Yeah, not ideal. It was definitely a trap game, and hopefully the Golden Knights are able to take some things away from it, more like always respect your opponents and don't play down to your competition. You have the great game against Tampa where you play up to your competition, and then you come back 2 nights later and play the Hawks like you're the Anaheim Ducks. I know it's a little harsh, but that's kind of the way they look. Bruce Cassidy after the game was not too happy about it either, and so I have a feeling the feeling between the fan base and the coaching staff is pretty mutual in the, what the heck, guys, that was a winnable game that you guys lost. But ultimately, it's really hard to complain with a 5-0-1 start after the All-Star break, and so I'm not really even going to try and complain. So if ever there was a night to lose in a shootout, in a very winnable game, I guess they picked the right night because they at least get to hold on to first place. Having their top 6 defensemen back has been crucial, allowing the Golden Knights to be able to play a lot better. And it shows they haven't given up a lot of goals. They've given up no more than 2 goals in regulation in the majority of the games, with the exception of the game against Tampa, which was just going to be a high-scoring affair regardless. Team looks like they're in a really good position coming out of the All-Star break. I know the trade deadline's coming up next week. I know Patrick Kane might be wearing a gray jersey for the Golden Knights here in the coming days. I'm not going to speculate as much as everybody else. It's just going to be what it's going to be, and we're going to see how everything plays out, how the cards fall. But the Golden Knights have repositioned themselves back into first place in the Western Conference after a pretty bad skid, 2-6-2 going into the All-Star break. So I guess what they needed is to have this good win streak and now point streak since they've lost to Chicago. So it's a 6-game point streak coming out of the break, and that's pretty darn good. And so it's really hard to complain, and obviously the play will keep getting better. The concerning thing is Adin Hill was out with a day-to-day lower body injury, which is what allowed Laurent Brossoit to be able to play against Chicago, first game in over a year. But I doubt that injury is anything serious. It was just a quick 1-day road trip, so I wouldn't be shocked if they just said, hey, Aiden, just hang out in Vegas, take a rest day. We're going to need you to play a lot down the stretch with LT's injury. So I'm not overly concerned, and Brossoit actually played incredibly well. He just kind of got let out to dry on two shots that he really couldn't do much with, in terms of trying to save it. And when you don't get a goal in the shootout, you can't really be expected to win. Ultimately, Knights are looking okay. I'm not worried. I'm way less worried than I was going into the All-Star break now. And so I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this home stretch, knowing that the trade deadline may or may not bring some insanity. It also may or may not bring some stability to the Golden Knights. In more of a like administrative sense, the only thing to happen to the Golden Knights outside of games of note is that we moved Mark Stone to LTIR, which frees up about $10 million in cap space. Patrick Kane makes about $10 million and would occupy about that much in cap space. I may not be a genius, but I can at least count with my 10 fingers, and the numbers kind of add up. You know, it's a week to the deadline, it's next Friday, and so we're going to see how everything plays out, and we're just going to see how this stretch run goes. Golden Knights are in a good position. And on that note, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you made it this far into the video, smash the like button down below if you enjoy this kind of content. And if you're enjoying the way the Golden Knights are playing right now, I know I am. Comment down below if you want to interact with me. I love talking to you guys when I get the opportunity to. And, you know, thanks for watching. Tell all your friends. Read all about it. I will be launching a new playlist on this channel that is a little bit less hockey related and a little bit more revolving around the odds and ends of what it is to be me, given where I am in life right now. It's more of a vlog style thing for my own personal record, but I'm going to put it out there for you guys to watch because I think my life is interesting, and I hope you guys think it's interesting too. It's going to be a little bit more golf related because that's my other passion, and a little bit of school related as I'm a senior in college, and life is crazy for seniors in college. And so ultimately that's just that will be coming up in the next little bit. The first video of that series should be up in the next day or two. I just have to finish editing it all together. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.